Speaker, as the Liberal National Party Shadow Minister for Communities, Shadow Minister for Disability Services and Seniors and Shadow Minister for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Partnerships, I rise to make a contribution to the debate on the Community Services Industry Portable Long Service Leave Bill 2019. Acting Speaker, as any Queenslander who is involved in the community services sector can attest to, whether they are part of the for-profit or employed within not-for-profit, non-government organisations, this sector is rapidly growing and continues to undergo significant changes, particularly thanks in part to the introduction of the National Disability Insurance Scheme. Acting Speaker, in my various portfolio roles as the Liberal National Party Shadow Minister, I've been particularly fortunate to regularly see the substantial and vital contribution of those employed in the community services sector, whether it's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community support services, mental health services, disability and respite support services, seniors community support organisations, or whether it is also the vital work that has been done by those involved in violence prevention support organisations. Before continuing, Acting Speaker, I would like to take this opportunity to thank and acknowledge the outstanding work by all involved in the community services sector who have been quite literally at the forefront of providing and maintaining crucial support to Queenslanders who have needed it most during the recent unprecedented COVID-19 health and economic crisis. Acting Speaker, Queenslanders who dedicate themselves to the service and support of other fellow Queenslanders is something that we simply cannot commend highly enough. Indeed, as our state's recent history has shown, working for the support and betterment of the lives of others, whether we know them or not, is a quintessential Queenslander trait. It is for that reason, Acting Speaker, that those employed in this sector deserve to have their dedication and service not only recognised, but also rewarded and appropriately remunerated. Acting Speaker, analysis has shown that workers in this sector are less likely to accrue a long service leave entitlement due to a high mobility between industry employers and the potential for insecure employment. The community services sector simply cannot afford, both metaphorically and literally, to lose the incredible depth of knowledge and skills of such workers. It is ultimately in the best interest of all community service organisations that the knowledge, skills, expertise and dedication of such workers is retained for the benefit of the sector and the provision of all of these services throughout Queensland. As such, given the high levels of structural labour mobility and impacts on workers accessing a long service leave entitlement, this legislation seeks to establish a portable long service leave scheme for workers in the community services sector. Acting Speaker, in enabling portable long service leave for this sector, I note that the application of this scheme will, and I quote, cover workers performing community services work, including contract workers engaged by an employer that is established for or with purpose including providing community services. Also cover other workers engaged by an employer to support the provision of community services work and apply to both for-profit and not-for-profit organisations within the community services industry. Once this scheme is enacted, workers in this sector will be provided with a portable long service leave entitlement of approximately 8.6 weeks after 10 years of service. I note, Acting Speaker, that whilst the application of this scheme will not be retrospective, workers who are already employed within this sector will gain access to this entitlement after 7 years of service. In its examination of this bill, the Queensland Parliament's Education, Employment and Small Business Committee received 23 submissions from a range of stakeholders in the community services sector, including employer organisations, employee organisations and peak industry bodies. And this was also in addition to the 29 written submissions that were received in response to the regulatory impact statement released in September of 2018, with a further 320 letters received from workers in the community services industry and members of the services union supporting this scheme. As reported by the Queensland Parliament's committee, the consultation process showed broad in-principle support for a portable long service leave scheme in the community services sector. That being said, Acting Speaker, there were some legitimate concerns that were raised by stakeholders during the consultation process. And chief amongst these concerns included calls for greater clarity on the scope of the proposed portable long service leave scheme, particularly given the meaning of key terms used in the bill, such as community services and community services work, worker and employer. I also noted, Acting Speaker, that the committee understood the views of some stakeholders and their concerns that the scope of the scheme was not sufficiently clear. The committee, however, was ultimately satisfied by further advice provided by the Department of Education that the scope as drafted in the bill is appropriate and will allow for flexibility in the community services industry. Mr Speaker, at a time when Queensland workers and families are facing an unprecedented health and economic crisis, what Queensland's need and deserve right now is certainty, especially when it comes to employment and associated entitlements and benefits. Unfortunately, Acting Speaker, what we've seen from the Palaszczuk State Labor government, particularly when it comes to workers in Queensland, is a Labor state government that is sending mixed messages on wages and awards and unfairly picking winners and losers when it comes to Queensland's industrial relations system. Acting Speaker, the amendments that the Minister for Education and Minister for Industrial Relations tabled only last night, indeed some 51 pages of amendments inserted into a bill that is only 77 pages long, are an insult to Queensland's hard-working frontline staff, including our nurses, teachers, ambulance officers, health professionals and others, including serving members of the Queensland Police Service. Acting Speaker, these workers have been asked to go above and beyond during the COVID-19 health pandemic, and that is exactly what they have done and they continue to do on behalf of all Queenslanders. And now, rather than supporting these workers and acknowledging their incredible contribution, service and even sacrifice to our state, the Palaszczuk State Labor government has failed to honour enterprise bargaining agreements negotiated in good faith. That is why, Acting Speaker, the Liberal National Party will be opposing the Palaszczuk State Labor government's wage freeze on frontline workers. Acting Speaker, the boast of the Labor Premier and the State Labor government that they are the friend of the worker and they are committed to jobs in Queensland has been finally exposed for the duplicitous claim that it has always been. The Palaszczuk State Labor government needs to do so much more to not only create jobs but also protect jobs, especially when Labor continues to keep our borders closed and send mixed messages on the border despite the expert health advice of Australia's Chief Medical Officer. Acting Speaker, the Palaszczuk State Labor government proudly claim that they have a plan to unite and recover for Queensland, when in fact they are seeking to divide and destroy. The Palaszczuk State Labor government is dividing Queenslanders, destroying our economy, destroying jobs and destroying Queensland's future. It's simply not good enough. Acting Speaker, hard-working Queenslanders deserve better. Our hard-working frontline workers deserve better. Acting Speaker, the Liberal National Party understands the importance of honouring enterprise bargaining agreements. Acting Speaker, the Liberal National Party also understands the importance of providing long service leave entitlements and the portability of these for community services workers, and the need to not only enshrine these entitlements in legislation, but to support and fund the scheme with due diligence and oversight by the Queensland State Government. Acting Speaker, in conclusion, can I thank all submitters for their contribution to the consideration of the legislation by the Education, Employment and Small Business Committee. I also thank all parliamentary members of the Education, Employment and Small Business Committee for their careful examination of this legislation, and the Committee Secretariat for their preparation and submission of this comprehensive committee report to the 56th Queensland Parliament. But, Acting Speaker, it is only the Liberal National Party that will stand up here for workers in Queensland. It is only the Liberal National Party that will create jobs and protect jobs in Queensland. It is only the Liberal National Party that will provide sound economic management and will ensure that our services and our departments here in Queensland are delivered for the benefit of all Queenslanders. It's only a Liberal National Party government here in Queensland that can get Queensland working again.